In just a few days, two of the closest friends on the entire WTA tour are going to walk out onto Arthur Ashe Stadium, and one of them is going to have to beat the other. That is not a normal exhibition matchup. That is not two random names picked out of a hat for a charity event. Iva Jovic and Alex Eala have a real relationship off the court, and a real history on it, one that almost nobody watching this event is going to know about. Here is the question you need answered before you watch this match. Who actually has the edge here? Because everyone assumes this is just a fun exhibition, low stakes, nothing to prove, two friends smiling for the cameras before the real tournament begins. That assumption is wrong. There is a number connected to this friendship that changes how you should watch every single point of that match. A number that most tennis coverage has completely ignored, buried under headlines about how cute it is that these two are close. And once you know that number, you are going to watch this exhibition completely differently. So, before Thursday night at Arthur Ashe, let's actually get into what is really going on between these two players. To understand why this matchup matters, you need to know exactly where these two players are standing right now, because neither of them is just some rising prospect anymore. Both of them have already arrived. Alex Eala just became the first Filipina in history to win a WTA singles title. She did it in Washington, beating the top 3 seeds in that entire draw to get there. That is not a fluke run. That is a player who went through the best competition in the field and came out on top every single time. She is heading into the US Open expected to be seated inside the top 15. Iva Jovic is doing something just as remarkable on the other side of the net. Earlier this year, she made a run to the quarterfinals of the Australian Open. Think about how rare that actually is. She became the youngest American woman to reach the quarterfinals in Melbourne since Venus Williams. In 1998. That is not a typo. That is the company Iva Jovic is now keeping. So this is not a match between an established star and an up-and-coming hopeful. This is two players, both 21 and under, both already delivering some of the biggest moments of their young careers this year, stepping onto the same court together. Now here is where it gets interesting. This exhibition is called Stars of the Open. It happens every year during US Open Fan Week, and it brings together the players the sport is betting on as the future. No ranking points on the line. No pressure that shows up on a stat sheet. But make no mistake, the players selected for this event are chosen very carefully, and being chosen means something. Think of it like this. Imagine two athletes who grew up together on the same youth national team, pushing each other in practice for years, genuinely close, genuinely supportive of one another. Then one day, they both make it to the professional level. The friendship does not disappear. But now, every time they share a court, there is something else sitting underneath the smiles and the warm pre-match interviews. Because now, there is a scoreboard. That is exactly the dynamic between Eala and Jovic heading into Thursday night. If you are the kind of tennis fan who wants the real story behind the matches, not just the score, you are in the right place. Because this channel is about to walk you through exactly what has actually happened every time these two have played each other. And once you have that context, the surface-level version of this friendly exhibition is going to look completely different. Because once you know where both of these players stand right now, the first layer of what is really going on between them is about to change everything. Here is the first thing you need to know. Iva Jovic and Alex Eala have already played each other twice this year. Twice. And Jovic won both matches. In straight sets. The first meeting came at the French Open. Jovic took that one in 2 sets. No third set drama. No late comeback from Eala. A clean, straightforward win for the American. Then the two met again at the HSBC Championships, and the result was the same. Jovic again, in straight sets. 2 matches. 2 losses for Eala. 0 sets won. Now, sit with that for a second, because this is the part almost nobody talking about this exhibition has actually pointed out. The official US Open promotional material for this event describes Jovic and Eala as close friends. That part gets repeated constantly. But that same material also describes them as 2 top 20 players who are going to square off on Thursday night. 2 different descriptions. 2 very different tones. And both of them are true at the same time. So here is the mini question worth sitting with. If Jovic has already beaten Eala twice this year, and both times in straight sets, does an exhibition match actually feel like a low-stakes, nothing-to-prove kind of event to Eala? Or does it feel like something else entirely? Because think about what a 0-2 head-to-head record actually does to a competitor at this level. These are not amateur players who shrug off a loss and move on. These are two of the most driven young athletes in the sport, both fighting for the same limited amount of attention, the same sponsorship interest, the same spotlight as the faces of the next generation of women's tennis. When one player has beaten you twice already this year, and you both know it, and the tennis media keeps bringing it up, that scoreline does not just disappear because the event is technically an exhibition. Now, layer another detail onto this. Both matches Eala lost to Jovic happened at big stages. The French Open, the HSBC Championships. These were not small tournaments where the result barely registers. These were high-visibility events, the kind where every match gets analyzed, discussed, and remembered by fans and by the players themselves. So picture the version of this story that most people are walking into Thursday night believing. Two friends, sharing a fun night on Arthur Ashe, smiling for photos, playing a relaxed exhibition with no real weight behind it. That is the surface story. That is the version getting repeated in every preview article. But if you are Alex Eala, walking onto that same court against the one player who has beaten you twice already this year, in a stadium that seats over 23,000 people, with cameras following every single point, does this actually feel like nothing? Does a competitor who just won her first career WTA title, who beat the top 3 seeds in Washington to get there, really walk into a match against someone with a perfect record over her and treat it like a throwaway event? The deeper you look into this, the less this feels like a simple, feel-good friendship story. And there is one more piece of this puzzle that changes the picture even further. Because despite that 0-2 record, Eala is not just an afterthought invite to this event. She is one of only 4 players chosen for the entire night. Here is the detail almost nobody talking about this matchup has actually stopped to think about. Despite losing to Jovic twice this year, in straight sets both times, Alex Eala was still chosen as one of only 4 players in the entire world for this event. Think about what that actually means. Stars of the Open is not a participation trophy. The organizers are not filling slots with whoever happens to be available that week. They are selecting the players they believe represent the future of the sport. And out of every rising star on the entire WTA and ATP Tour, Eala made that list, standing right alongside Jovic, right alongside João Fonseca, right alongside Lerner Tien. So, here is the assumption, almost everyone watching this event is making without even realizing it. That head-to-head record is the full story. That a 0-2 scoreline against Jovic somehow means Eala is the lesser player in this friendship, the one playing catch-up, the one who has something to prove and nothing to bring. That assumption is wrong. A head-to-head score tells you what happened in 2 specific matches. It does not tell you the whole story of who a player is, or where their career is heading, or how the sport itself views their trajectory. And the fact that Eala is standing on that court Thursday night, selected by the same organization that runs the US Open, tells you everything about how she is actually viewed right now. Not as someone chasing Jovic. As someone standing right next to her. Here is an analogy that makes this click. Picture 2 runners on the same relay team. One of them has a slightly faster split time in practice. On paper, that runner looks like the stronger athlete. But the coach still puts both of them on the same relay squad, running the same race, on the same stage, because the coach knows that raw practice numbers do not capture the full picture of what each runner brings to the team. Speed is one data point. It is not the entire evaluation. That is exactly what is happening here. Jovic has the head-to-head edge. 2 wins to 0. But the US Open, an organization with access to more information about these players than any headline writer covering this event, still put Eala on that court as one of the 4 faces of the future of tennis. So if you are watching this match on Thursday expecting to see one player who is clearly ahead and one player who is clearly behind, you might want to reconsider that framing. Because the friendship between these two is not actually built on one player being dominant and the other playing catch-up. It is built on 2 athletes who both, in different ways, have already proven they belong in exactly this spotlight. And once you actually put together everything Eala has accomplished this year outside of these 2 matches against Jovic, the picture gets even clearer. Because there is a version of this story where that 0-2 record barely matters at all. Let's actually look at the full picture, because when you step back and put everything in order, that 0-2 head-to-head starts to look a lot smaller than it did at first. Start with Washington. Alex Eala did not just win a title there. She beat the top 3 seeds in that entire draw to do it. 3 matches. 3 of the best players in the field. And she won every single one. That result made her the first Filipina in history to capture a WTA singles title. Not the head-to-head against Jovic. Not a close loss somewhere. An actual title, earned against the toughest competition the tournament had to offer. Now put that next to what Jovic has done. Her run to the Australian Open quarterfinals was genuinely historic, the youngest American woman to reach that stage in Melbourne since Venus Williams in 1998. Both of these results happened in the same season. Both of them are real, significant, career-defining accomplishments. Neither one cancels out the other. Here is the number that matters more than the head-to-head. Eala has played 56 matches this year. 56. That is more than almost anyone else on the entire WTA Tour. A 38-18 record across a schedule that most 21-year-olds have never had to handle. She is not someone who peaked in 2 matches against Jovic and faded. She has been consistently competitive against a massive volume of opponents all year long. Now bring in the second piece of proof. Both players are entered in the main draw of the US Open singles event, which starts right after this exhibition. That means Thursday night is not the final word on anything. It is one data point in a season that is still very much being written. If Eala goes deep into the tournament right after this exhibition, does anyone remember the exhibition score at all? Probably not. What people remember is what happens on the biggest stage. In the matches that actually count. And here is the prediction worth making. Given where both of these players are right now, given the ages they are at, given how much tennis both of them still have ahead of them, this is very likely not the last time Eala and Jovic share a court. This could be the first chapter in a rivalry that plays out over years, not weeks. The kind of rivalry tennis fans end up following for the next decade. Here is the insight almost nobody has connected. Eala and Jovic are the same age. Both born in the same year. Both currently being talked about as 2 of the most important young faces in the entire sport. That is not a coincidence you see very often, 2 players from completely different countries, completely different backgrounds, ending up on parallel timelines like this, both breaking into the spotlight in the exact same season. So when you put all of that together, the Washington title, the 56-match season, the shared main draw entry, the matching timelines, that 0 and 2 head-to-head stops looking like the defining story between these 2. It starts looking like one small chapter in a much bigger story that is still being written in real time. And that brings us to the real question nobody has an answer to yet. What happens after Thursday night? So here is where all of this actually lands. Whatever happens on Arthur Ashe Stadium Thursday night, the truth about Alex Eala and Iva Jovic was never really about a scoreline. It is about 2 21-year-olds, born the same year, from completely different corners of the tennis world, who somehow ended up on the exact same timeline, both breaking through in the same season, both selected as faces of what this sport is becoming next. That 0 and 2 record. It is real. It happened. But it is one small piece of a much bigger story that includes a historic title in Washington, a historic run in Melbourne, and 2 names now permanently linked together heading into the biggest tournament of the year. Here is what happens next. Both of them walk off that exhibition court and straight into the US Open main draw days later. Whatever the scoreline says on Thursday night, it will not decide who goes further in the tournament that actually matters. It will not decide who ends this season ranked higher. It will not decide how this rivalry looks 5 years from now, when both of these players could be fighting for Grand Slam titles instead of exhibition bragging rights. So the real question is not who wins on Thursday. The real question is whether this is the match where the head-to-head finally starts to shift. Whether this is the beginning of Eala closing that gap. Or whether Jovic extends her advantage to 3 straight. And beyond that, whether this friendship turns into one of the defining rivalries of the next generation of women's tennis. The kind fans look back on years from now as the moment 2 legends first started pushing each other. Nobody knows that answer yet. Not even the players standing on that court Thursday night know how this story actually ends. If you want to see exactly what happens when these 2 step on court together, and follow both of their runs through the US Open right after, subscribe now, because this channel is going to be right there covering every single moment of it as it happens.